couldn't walk. I couldn't, like, it got to the point where I had my hand on my hip and I was like, pulling my leg. And that kind of led down into just being, overwhelmingly depressed.
When Matt came in, he was a bit of a unique guy because he's relatively young, but he did have quite severe arthritis in his hip, and he's extremely active. So he's a physical education teacher. He spends most of his day running around with high school students.
I had been a wrestling coach for 14 years, and I found myself, in a position where I knew I just couldn't do it the way that I wanted to do it, and I had to give that up. And so once I got this diagnosis of needing, a hip replacement, it just really, from an emotional standpoint, it just set me way back. I called the doctor and we scheduled this at Greenwich Hospital.
I thought he would be a great candidate for an anterior hip replacement, and he did, exceptionally well after the surgery.
Here I am, I guess 6 or 7 months later, and I can't believe the strides that I've made.
When Matt came in at 2 weeks, he wasn't using a cane. He barely had a limp, and he told me that he had already been playing soccer with some of his students, so I could tell that he was definitely on the fast track to recovery.
It pops into my mind, and I'm like, wow, I am so grateful that I can take this next step or jump in the pool. And I think it's one of the things that we hear all the people in this area talk about. Manhattan, you got to go to Manhattan if you want this or you want that. You have to go into the city to get that done. And I'm here to tell you, you don't. My experience was, off the charts. I don't think that anyone else could have done a better job.
That's what keeps us doing our job, is seeing patients after these operations that we're having a lot of disability and difficulty with even simple daily activities, and they can basically return to all the activities that they wish with very, very little restrictions. And 3 months down the road after an operation, a lot of them are starting to forget that they ever had the surgery.
The unit of study in our high school phys-ed class was badminton, and I was a pretty good badminton player. So one of my students who happened to be captain of the varsity soccer team, said, Mr. Beatty, I bet you I could beat you now. And I was like, I'm gonna need a couple of weeks. And then he said, well, that sounds like an excuse. And so I picked up the racket and I said, let's go. And I beat him 16-2, So that's 3 weeks after, having a full hip replacement. And it was kind of cool because the whole class stood around the net. I don't know if they were cheering for me or waiting for something bad to happen, but I beat them up pretty good. They were embarrassed.